I'm Terry. I do a lot of different arts, but I think for this one it's about punk and my jackets. I've always customised things like the backs of jackets. I've been doing that ever since the beginning of secondary school, but I got really into the punk movement and stuff after a breakup a couple of years ago, I think. Like a January couple of years ago, where I just thought to myself, I need a rebrand, basically. I need to reinvent everything, and I fancy something to take my mind off things, and that was what I veered towards. My gran taught me a bit of sewing, and we had textiles classes back in secondary school, but that wasn't really my thing. A lot of it was machine sewing, and machines stress me out. You always have that paranoid fear that you're going to run over your fingers. So I started off with hand sewing and watching a YouTube channel called Bernadette Banner, who does historical like sewing and sewing techniques, and most of that is hand sewn. And to see that that's not a limitation, actually, if you don't have a machine, that shouldn't be a limitation. I just like the fact that there was options if you didn't have a machine, or didn't know how to use a machine, or didn't want to use a machine because it was allowed, or what have you. So I learned about the punk movement in A-level media studies. We were studying the ska movement and the 80s movement that went against Thatcher, especially when Thatcher described the streets of London being swamped with immigrants, I think, and I think that's extremely relevant today as well. There was a big kind of riot culture, as it were, of punk who would fight against skinheads being, I mean, you don't really see them much today. They probably became Reform UK voters, but you kind of shaved heads, white wife beaters who were very, very anti-immigrant and would storm usually Pakistani communities living on the outskirts of London. So you ended out with the punk movement, who would then go patrol the area to stop skinheads from being there. So it's always been what would be considered today as woke, but it grew up with queer people and everyone who didn't feel like they fit in, and people in marginalised communities, especially people of colour, as much as people of colour also may not have felt like they were able to fight because they were so discriminated against. It was quite a lot of like more privileged communities, as it were, kind of fighting for communities that were less privileged, and I really enjoyed that. I've got privilege as a white person who grew up in a middle class neighbourhood, so the idea of fighting for these communities is kind of how it came about, as well as a very kind of DIY fashion sense, which I really like. There's kind of a lot of emphasis on the imperfection and anti-fashion, deliberately being as not minimalist and not clean and not rich and fancy as you can. You go to hardware stores to pick up screws, you rip the heads off lighters and attach them to your jackets, you print what you want, you take what you want and you rip it up and make it what you want. There's a big DIY culture within punk because it's something that everyone should be able to do, no matter who you are, what your class or race or wealth is. You should be allowed to make what you want as long as you hold those political beliefs. I think, especially with the emphasis of your exhibition, it's always seen as, it's not an art form, it's a craft, because, I mean, women, but a lot of minorities do it, so it's not as important as the fine arts or what have you, whatever that means, because it's a pretty broad topic. But I think it's important that we keep this going. It's not, again, if the point of it is to be accessible, that anyone can do it, and to find what you love doing, and display with patches the bands you like, the political movements you like, anything you like. It's just a kind of tapestry of the stuff you like, and thus it's your personality on a jacket. I think it's important that young people do that, because especially in today's culture and the rise of conservatism, where you have to be prim and proper and go into business, and economics and invest in crypto or whatever. Like, I don't want to do that, and I genuinely strongly believe that nobody really wants to do that. That is not interesting and it's not fun. Young people should be allowed to play and create and have fun. And that's what it's all about. You should play and create and have fun. But no matter who you are, not some people should be allowed to play and create and have fun. Everyone should be allowed to. So I think it's important that we remember that we can do whatever we want to do, really. I think a couple of good YouTube channels are Bernadette Banner, who does historical reconstruction, as well as, I think she used to be a costume designer on Broadway, but Rachel Maxey does slightly more casual things, and he's very into that kind of Hobbit, cottagecore, rustic aesthetic. Unfortunately, a lot of resources around punk, for whatever reason, are based in the US. So there's a website called Angry Young and Poor, where you can get patches and studs and all sorts. But they don't ship to the UK. I think they used to, but I don't think they do anymore. It is difficult, I'm not going to lie, trying to get your hand on fun resources like studs. Because not many places sell them, and the places that do sell them are like Amazon and AliExpress. I think there's an element of not being kind of Puritan about it, and to not shame others for like, oh, you got your jacket from Shein before you did it up or whatever. Some people don't have access to things because of where they are. I mean, you know, especially in the Southwest. Somebody told me, I'm going to get an Uber. No, you're not. That doesn't exist. And the buses come once every hour. So good luck getting your hands on absolutely anything, because a lot of places don't come, don't ship, don't work here. Especially with the rise of social media, there's been like a very kind of Puritan, it has to be perfect, you have to be perfect in doing this. And it's not going to be, it never is. It's unrealistic to do so. I think for young people, lowering your expectations and having fun, realising that whatever you see, and I say on social media, that's a stereotypical thing, but just in the media in general, is not accurate to what you experience, and you should do what you want, is such a freeing thing, and to realise that a lot of assumptions you had came from the media and thus you're wrong, is such a world-changing realisation. But just to kind of have fun with things is such a good part. Have fun, and have fun with other people as well. I think it's, I don't know how to explain it. I definitely come from a place of privilege. Again, I grew up in a middle-class household. I'm white. I went to a good school. I got a good education, so I'm very privileged in that way. On the other hand, I am queer and trans. I'm disabled. I'm neurodivergent. So you've got fights that I can join in on, both in support of and as a member of. I think it's interesting, you meet a lot of people through doing this, and obviously because you all look the same in this kind of DIY sense, you don't see, like, you might not know, you know? You might not know if somebody's super rich, and you might not know if somebody's super poor, because you all look the same. So I think, yeah, realising the privilege you have and using it to your advantage, to stand up for people who are less advantaged, and to put your foot down, because you will be taken more seriously, unfortunately, than other minorities is a good way forward, but you have to deconstruct that yourself. You have to realise that things like racism is systemic. You have to realise what beliefs you hold that come from systemic racism, that certain communities were built up because of systemic racism, that you have to realise that, deconstruct that, and then and go, okay, what can I do to fix it? Not fix it, but what can I do to counter this? What can I do to challenge it?
Yeah.
A big point of punk is the community aspect. Is the fact that, okay, I can't do it by myself, but there's a huge community out there, and also I can spot them from a mile away because they all look like me. So you can round up a bunch of people and go, right, this is what we're going to do, and that was the point of the punk movement in the 80s. I kind of don't believe in craft. If you look at things that are considered art, and what is considered craft, quite often the art is more painting, sculpting, whereas the craft is everything else. And you'll find things like the everything else are, for example, bead craft, which are prominent in Native American cultures. You've got all sorts of various potteries and stuff. That's considered a craft, and that's prominent in various other cultures. Like, it's all the stuff that's considered craft is a craft because it was from a lower society. Yeah. Knitting, crochet are seen as more feminine things, so there's no way it can be as uptight as what the men do, right? So there's an art to like mending things and making clothes and stuff, which is just seen as kind of a necessity rather than a skill. And yet you ask somebody who isn't experienced to do it and they wouldn't be able to. I think a lot of it comes from societal prejudice as what is considered an art and what is considered a craft, rather than what you're actually doing. It's who's doing it depends on its prowess, rather than what it actually is. Funny enough, goes back to systemic racism and systemic misogyny. So, again, realising those systems and realising how it seeps into every single bit of society can help you deconstruct these kind of things, and realise that actually a lot of things are an art. I would even go as far as to say things like agriculture is an art. The fact that any skill at all where you make something is an art. You're a carpenter, I'd say that's an art. You're a mechanic, that's an art. Because you are physically doing something with your hands that results in something better than the sum of its parts. Cooking is an art. I think a lot of things can be considered arts, but aren't, by definition. It's not just painting, sculpture, drawing. It's not something that's in a sketchbook or like a little weird item on a pedestal. Like, there's more to it than that. And I think you take away that almost pretentiousness that comes with the label of art, and you realise it is for everyone, and it is to have fun, and it is to express yourself. And I think opening it up to as many people as possible and taking away that prestigious title allows people to have fun. And that sounds really cliche, but I think we as a society have kind of forgotten how to have fun and think fun is only for children, and then you become serious when you're an adult. And that's really sad. That's really sad. I think a lot of people working with kids have a great joy in it because you lose a lot of that creativity as you get older. That's so sad. We should do more. It shouldn't all just be kind of numbers and spreadsheets as we grow up. We should be able to have fun with things the way we used to as a kid. I think it's quite healing to be able to have fun. Like I do with in my own four walls with a tin of paint. It's kind of up to me, isn't it? I've tried to make battle jackets for other people before. That's difficult. Because again, they're really, really personal. I've had some kind of cruddy ones where I go up to people and compliment them on their battle jacket, and they go, "Thanks." You get a lot of old women coming up to you. You're going through charity shops and looking for like a shirt you can rip up or something, and I will inevitably get somebody come up and either touch my hair or touch my jacket without permission, and that's jarring. But you just kind of have to get used to it. I will say the joy of it is wearing the stuff that you go out and make, you get a lot of compliments. The people who don't like you won't say anything. In Britain, I think that's the culture. But the people who do like it will say stuff that they like it, and it gives you more. I don't think this is the same throughout all cultures at all. I think a lot of people get ridiculed for things, but certainly my experience is that you might get some funny looks from the people who don't like it, but the people who do like it will go out of their way to say so. And that's anyone, and that's everyone. Of all ages. I've had some super preppy teenage girls come up to me and tell me that they like my hair, or some really old men in wheelchairs tell me they like my hair, or random cashiers say they used to have a mohawk back in the 80s and they miss it. And it's just nice. It gives you a point to talk about, and that kind of builds that sense of community. And if one person looks at me and goes, if they can wear that jacket, I can bring mine out the cupboard and also wear it in public, then great, because, again, there shouldn't be shame in having a bit of fun at your own expense, you know?